I've never spoken in my entire 35 years in the field of career services for anything other than 15 minutes. So I'm going to try and keep it really short, but also be inspired by your questions. Is there anybody got one question to get me started with? One question about money, figures, and more? No questions. Okay, no questions. Money. The issue of money was brought up. Okay, we were introduced. We talked a little bit about the fact that colleges and universities in this country are fairly expensive. There are people who sit in that room, in this room, in those rows, are trying to figure out, can we make this an equation? Can we solve for X? Right? Algebra, favorite class algebra. Those of you who have seen nobody's your favorite class algebra. Clearly you're not going to raise your favorite class calculus. But job search, career decision making is more like calculus than it is like algebra. Algebra you can solve for X. If I'm interested in this, if I have values associated with this, if I have a personality trait associated with this, and the system they're going to talk about later will help you do that, and therefore I want this, how can I solve for X? How can I identify a major that will lead to a career? In this day and age, I feel badly, I must share with you that that's not the case. Majors may not matter. In fact, I've learned over the 30-some odd years that I've been doing this that there's actually about 4 or 5 phrases that you need to begin to think about, whether you first should be thinking about questions. Nobody has a question for me. How can you afford it? Okay, you can afford it if, first of all, you begin to think about career exploration rather than college admissions. You begin to identify the fact that if you can describe a job, if you, meaning the sons and daughters in our room here tonight, if you describe a job, you might be able to get that job. Not describe a major. That is a misnomer that we've used for at least the first 20 to 25 years in my career field. Things have changed. Clearly, the economy around us, the society around us has changed. I feel badly that I have to say this. The first book I ever wrote was called Liberal Arts Jobs and Liberal Arts Power, and the answer to the question, what can I do with this major, a liberal arts major, was anything you want. Sadly but true, not true. Not true. Unless you go to Harvard Yale. Unless, as most of you have very wealthy parents, which I can raise your hand if they're very wealthy parents. No, not the parents, but okay, so you really, more than ever before, need to be able to do career explorations so you can describe the nature of your field of interest. So if you can describe a job, you can get that job. Next, if you've met someone who's in a career field of interest, you can enter that field. Why? Because I'm describing what that person does. Most of our high school students today don't do enough, and you will be learning about that career exploration. They still think about, well, does this college have this major? Well, clearly it does. A major in English. I'm speaking English. How exciting. What can I do with an English degree? But there are other software programs, and we have that at our school. Even if you just do a Google search, majors and careers. What can I do with a major in? It will provide you links to different resources. Again, if you can describe a job, you can get a job. 2, if you've met somebody who's a job you'd like, you can get a similar job. Why? Because you can explain, I met somebody who's an engineer. Show of hands, anybody interested in engineering right now? Why is that? Oh, I'm good at math and science. Yeah, I'm good at math and science. Have you met an engineer? Have you met an engineer? Yes, no, maybe? Good. If that person's a role model, then we can meet them and say, what did you major in as an undergraduate? What courses did you take as an undergraduate? Where did you go to school? You might even ask them, how can I afford this process? And the process that might be in front of you is that I go to community college for 2 years. I go to state school for 2 years. I see how well I'm doing in my major. Then I might seek more. More meaning internships. More meaning volunteer experiences related to your field. More might mean I transfer. I ultimately graduate from a school that might be quotes higher ranked, have greater prestige, have greater name recognition, or maybe I don't. But if I can describe that job, I can get a job. If I've met somebody who's a job I would like, I can get a similar job. The more people you meet in your career fields of interest, the more likely it is you'll enter those fields. These are all concepts that I hope you kind of take a little bit into mind now, but that's what we're going to work on with you when we get you, and eventually you're going to learn more about what career services offices do. But those are critically important. And then the phrase I will use now, hopefully inspire you, majors may not matter. But they might. It may not be a major, it might be all of a sudden I major in English, but then I find out that I'm fascinated by this career for a field called public relations. Then I realize I might have to take 1 or 2 courses in public relations, perhaps in summer, perhaps there at a community college. Not even transferring my credit into SUNY Geneseo or University of Rochester or RIT or Harvard, Yale, or Princeton, or to University of Florida, or to University of North Carolina. You can build 1 course at a time, a series of experiences that help you, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year, get internships as a college student, or as a pre-college student, post-baccalaureate internships, which is a concept that parents don't even understand yet, but it is the concept that we in our field are beginning to identify. The post-baccalaureate internship is today's first job. So those are kind of big picture issues I want to think about, but I do want to try and answer at least 3, 4, or 5 questions. And in fact, to incentive you, I have brought gifts, but only for people who ask questions. So I have brought this book, the Everything College Major book, which I did author, I think, 2 years ago. I can't remember. I don't have kids in college anymore, so I'm not really big on the royalties and the checks anymore. My once was very, very careful about keeping track of all my book sales. So if you ask a question, you will get a book. Oh, see, oh, now the hand goes up. If it was just open-ended for intellectual sake. So question, sir.
I'm going to give around a taker. But what I wanted to ask you is, I know that internships are important for the kids, and to get a flavor for what they might want to do after they get out of school or what they might prepare for in school. Is it important for kids to create a resume to try to get an internship instead of going?
The question was, I know internships are important, and they are more and more important. He also posited that internships are exploratory, and they no longer are because they're selective. Somebody can't just say, I'm curious about the field of medicine, please allow me to volunteer and conduct some brain surgery over at the Strong Memorial Hospital. Now you can do some shadowing experiences. You can do information conversations that lead to shadowing experiences and then might lead to internships. And the answer is yes, of course, because that's why we've got this wonderful gentleman figured out there's no logic to it. Okay, I've got 10 minutes to go. Or is it 10 minutes have passed? Which one? 10 minutes to go. So resumes are important. They help readers look at your background very quickly, and they're going to get into that a little bit later. So resumes are critically important. Internships critically important. Shadowing experience is critically important. And I feel badly, more and more we're pushing it downward that it's important for high school students as well as for college students.
So suppose that a high school student has not had.
I don't have a second book for you, sir. It's a follow-up question, okay?
But suppose they don't have any experience at all. It's still important to get something in there, right?
Right. So, and again, the speaker later will kind of answer some of those questions, but my opinion about that is you always have something to share. You might be expanding upon your academic experiences, may not be your volunteer experiences, may not be your work experiences, but you have to then share with the reader your academic experiences. And at certain ages and stages, we may not be talking about a formal resume. It might be a mini bio. It might be in a networking note. We say, academically, my background includes, experientially, my background includes, I now seek this. So again, depending on the person, depending on the stage, it may not be a formal resume. It might be what I call a mini bio. And it might be in more and more. I did a radio talk show a month ago, and a person called in and referred me to read a wonderful article. And it's true, and it talked about the death of the cover letter. And although I wrote a book on cover letter writing, which is the Everything Cover Letter book, and it's probably available on Barnes & Noble and anywhere online, but again, I don't have tuition anymore, so I don't have to worry about these books selling that much anymore. That cover letters are not as important now in my mind as networking notes. When I open up an email, I don't know somebody well enough to read a letter. I just don't have time or energy to read a letter. In the olden days, students, this is not you, but parents, remember when there really was only a 4-cent stamp in envelope, stuck in the resume, stuck in the covering letter, and that was it. That was high tech. Okay? Now that's not the case. So we're talking more and more about not just resumes, but other communication devices and tools and techniques. Thank you for asking that question. We've got a couple more questions or a couple more books. Otherwise, I'm going to have to blab a little bit more about money's, majors, and mores. I can send you. You want a book too, sir? Okay. That's it. really sincerely have changed. I used to be able to honestly say, the question is, what's the most important thing for a student to leave college with? I believe very sincerely in this day and age, different than I said 20, 30, and even 10 years ago, is a sense of career focus. You want to pass that back? I don't know if you think of a question, this could be your student. Right? That's a little difficult. That's on college admissions essay writing, and I wrote with my daughter a number of years back. So she was smart enough to tell me what she was going through, and we tried to translate that to leadership. So, with great humor, I share with students that you must be able to answer the question, what the F do you want to do? Meaning field, function, and firm. Not what you were thinking about, but what the F do you want to do? Field, function, and firm. I believe college students today must, as soon as we can get them to do so, and it's inappropriate. It's counter to the natural developmental process. It is counter to what it is that you and I, as somewhat older, or at least I'm old, you're young, still, once did. You can't just graduate from college and say, I love learning for learning's sake. I learned how to learn, and learned how to love learning, and learned how to love. No, forget that part. But I learned all these things about learning. I got 5 more minutes. That's no longer the case. I feel bad. You can learn that, and you should learn that. You should clearly learn research skills, analytical talents, writing skills, but you've got to express your goals as fields, functions, and firms. What fields am I curious about and interested in? Can I express those goals as I get farther along from freshman year through sophomore year? Clearly, by junior year, I require all of my students to express at least 3 fields and 3 functions in each of those fields. And then give me a list of firms. You can't just say any longer, I wish you could, value statements. I need a meaningful job. I want a job working with people. I want a job that I'm passionate about. In fact, I really do. If it's your car, I apologize, but I rip off those bumper stickers that say, find a job that you love, you'll never work a day in your life. What the heck does that mean? What the F does that mean? Field, function, and firm. If you tell me the field, the function, and firm, we then can, as we're going to talk about a little later, in a college career services environment, talk to you about exploration, talk to you about internships, talk to you about summer school, talk to you about other experiences. So I think people need to leave college with a sense of career focus. They hopefully can come into college with a sense of career focus. They hopefully can connect majors more than one. I encourage moms and dads to think that's no longer just one major. If a student has more than one area of interest, every school in this area, every school that I've been affiliated with for the 30 years I've been doing this, you can double major. It's just not that hard. Or you can major in one thing and find a fascinating area and take 3 courses. We call it a cluster at the University of Rochester. Find 3 courses that you're interested in and build some skills. Right, so I only have about 2 minutes or 3 minutes left. And you want to go, or you want to ask a question? Is that a question? How important? So we're getting a little bit off on the admissions stuff, and I feel very comfortable answering those questions, so I will. But I gotta get the book. If I was to list and not lie, and thank goodness I don't work for the admissions office, so I can list and not lie, the 3 or 4 most important things in this order. First, SAT scores. I'm sorry. Despite of what people I can tell you, despite of what people in the admissions office tell you, SAT scores are still the first criteria used to make decisions whether you're admitted to college. That's for the selective schools. State schools might be different. You can ask a question a little later. But SAT scores, second transcripts. Not just what courses did you get grades in and what are your grades, but what specific courses did you take? Did you take AP courses? Co-curricular activity is very important. Except there is a myth of well-roundedness. All well-rounded students get into schools. Oh, really? I'm going to use that metaphor. The truth is, all students who have a bullseye in the middle of the target know what they want and why, can share with admissions professionals. I've got 1 minute, 1 minute, 0 minutes. So I encourage you, again, get a sense of career focus, think about your majors, do as many co-curricular activities as you can, but be prepared to highlight your academic achievements as well as your focus. So, and for your time, I'm going to stick around afterwards.